Welcome, fellow gamers. Welcome back to Gamers Bay. It's Daniel, and today we're going to take a look at an epic classic arcade fighting game from back in 1996 called Waku Waku 7. So this game was developed by Sunsoft for SNK's Neo Geo MVS arcade hardware. Now, all of the game's 7 initially playable characters are actually thought to be parodies of characters from other popular film and game franchises. Though some of the characters in the game are a little bit more obvious to figure out what they're parodies of than others. So here we're going to play as this purple cat monster looking character named Mauru, who's thought to be a parody of the spirit character Totoro from the animated Japanese fantasy film titled My Neighbor Totoro. So this character is one of the less obvious ones to figure out in the game. But he's also one of my favorites, as I really like the presentation of Mauru, and I honestly thought he had the coolest fighting maneuvers among all the characters in the game. So some of the parodies for some of the other characters are a little bit more easy to figure out, such as characters like, say, Dandy J, who's thought to be somewhat of a cross parody between Indiana Jones and the character Joseph Joestar from the classic manga series JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, that series was also developed into a fighting game franchise by Capcom, I believe starting back in 1997, 1998-ish, somewhere in that time range. Now, Dandy J also reminds me of another character, Alex from Capcom Street Fighter 3. Now, while I get that people would be really quick to associate him with characters like Indiana Jones and Joseph Joestar, I really think he more closely resembles the fighting stance and mannerisms of Alex in my opinion. Now, another character, Rai the Cow, is a boy with a BMX bike who's thought to be a parody of Seiken So, a character from SNK's King of Fighters and Psycho Soldier series. Now, for those who aren't too familiar with Psycho Soldier, it was essentially a sequel to SNK's 1987 arcade action-adventure platformer, Athena. Now, whenever I mention the name Athena, people automatically know what I'm talking about. But a lot of times when I mention the title Psycho Soldier, people are like, oh, I think I've heard of that game, but I'm not too sure. Well, it was actually a sequel to Athena. And the name, to me, really didn't fit. I think that's why people kind of got caught off guard between those two titles. Which also reminds me, Mike Zorch, who runs our gaming group on MeWe, he actually did a review of Athena a while back, right here on Gamerspace channel, if you want to check that out. Now, as for Waku Waku 7's storyline, well, it's pretty simplistic. The game's story is centered around its characters competing for the legendary Waku Waku balls, and it's said that whoever manages to collect all 7 balls will have their dearest wishes granted. So it's just a very simple storyline, there's really not much to it. Now let's talk a little bit about the actual gameplay. Now, Waku Waku 7 boasts an awesome set of unique fighting maneuvers for each character, including special power attacks called Harara moves. Now, while the game's sprites were really compelling for the time, input lag is an issue when it comes to gameplay, as moves often don't take despite adequate inputs, and some of the special moves were a real pain to pull off. Now, the thing is, this game had a very unconventional, unconventional control scheme, such as having to execute a 360-degree directional rotation to pull off Mauru's Bun Typhoon maneuver. Now, whenever I try to pull off that fighting maneuver with Mauru, it ends up canceling out and it doesn't work. So it's kind of annoying. But back then, I think that developers at the time were trying to make these games as challenging as possible, and one of the ways that they did that was to make it harder to pull off special fighting maneuvers. There was more button sequences and so forth, but the problem with those extended sequences, control sequences, is that you often end up having to cancel out before you can complete the move, and so that's always been a problem. And, you know, that's kind of why games like Street Fighter 2 took off. The Street Fighter series grew with a ton of popularity, not just because of its originality, but because Capcom simplified the control scheme of fighting games. And that's really what helped to propel a series like Street Fighter. So now, something else to note about this game is that it technically has two bosses. There's a mid-level boss named Bonus Kun, which resembles a punching bag with no arms or legs. Now, the final boss, Fernandez, he's this large, round, black demon with bat-like wings. He actually looks really cool, who conducts electricity, and his Aurora special is among the toughest in the game. I mean, we're talking like he'll fly across the screen, hit you, and you're dead. He's really tough to beat. So now you're probably wondering, well, this was originally an arcade game. What are the console ports? Well, there were several console ports for this game, including for the Sunsoft collection. That was on the PlayStation 2 back around the late 2000s, like 2008, I think. So it was kind of late in the PS2 life cycle, and it played just like the original arcade version, which you're seeing here. In my opinion, it played very, very well. It didn't have quite as good graphics though. And it also added a couple of additional characters to the roster, and I thought that was really cool. There were also a few more modern ports for the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, and Xbox One, believe it or not. So these games are actually available on some of the more modern platforms. More surprisingly, there was also a Sega Saturn version of this game, believe it or not. Now, this version was originally meant to be released for the Neo Geo CD, but at the time, the Neo Geo CD was pretty much falling out of popularity outside of Japan. It did not take off in America, and the project ended up being scrapped, and it ended up being developed for the Saturn. So now, despite a few quirks, this game overall I thought was really a blast to play. I really liked this game, and I wouldn't mind seeing a reboot of it. I know there's, you know, some of the more modern ports, they kind of beefed up the graphics a bit, and like I said, you know, before, they added a couple extra characters to the roster. I'd like to see this like have a full reboot with a few new characters, some new fighting maneuvers, some updated graphics. That would really be ideal. So anyways, that is Waku Waku 7. What did you think about this game? Let me know in the comments below down in the description. Now, if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest videos. Many thanks for watching. I'm going to go ahead and continue to play for a bit if you want to continue to watch. And until next time, take care.
Round 2, fight! Round 1, fight! Round 1, fight! Round 2, fight!
Jigsaw! もうダメ。
大変強すぎ